What's up, everyone? Justin here, back with a new episode of The List, where I talk about any topics I want to, or actually, this is not an episode of The List. I take that back. This is an episode of Let's Talk About It, the Mr. McMahon documentary on Netflix. 6 damn episodes. You don't think they tried to squeeze every goddamn drop out of this documentary? 6 episodes? You really needed 6? I don't think you needed that many. You overdid it. Bill Simmons, executive producer, Netflix, you overdid it. You should have put out 4 episodes, but you decided to do 6 because you had so much footage, so many interviews. A lot of the interviews were what I expected. All the wrestlers, all the legends that Vince made stars. Every response they did was really expected. It was like really just expected. I didn't expect any of them to bash Vince or put him down or say he's crazy or anything. Or say he really micromanaged his company. They didn't say any of that. All the talking heads, all the legends stayed basically on script. They didn't want to piss off Vince. I'm sure they all still love him and respect him. Even after the accusations and Vince being accused and sued by Janelle Grant, even after all that, a lot of these wrestlers, legends, I'm sure, some are disgusted and probably want no part of Vince. They don't want to work with him anymore, maybe. But a lot of them still respect him. Like John Cena has acted like he has said in interviews publicly. John Cena said, when your friends are going through tough times, whatever he said, I believe it was on when Cena was on Howard Stern earlier this year, he said something like when your friends are way down or people you care about are down and you don't turn your back on them, something like that. And look, that's Cena's prerogative. I'm not upset at Cena. If he wants to still stand by Vince or forgive him, look, he can forgive him all he wants. But if Vince gets charged and goes to prison, a lot of these damn wrestlers are probably gonna think different of Vince if he goes to prison and gets charged by the federal government. Because the federal government is actually investigating Vince still. I don't know why it's taking them a whole year to come up with if he broke the damn law. He probably broke many laws. I'll just say that. So anyways, because when Vince did all this crap, accused of doing all this with Janelle Grant, basically acting like her pimp or like a fucking domestic abuser, using her, stuff like that. Yeah, you could say he paid her $200,000. She had no business making $200,000. She wasn't even qualified for that job. But he put up her pay. We know why he did that. But I'm just ranting nonsense. This is not about the episodes that I was saying. But let's get into it. Again, I think Netflix overdid it. Too many episodes about Vince. There should have been 4, in my opinion. Episode 6, I knew everything they said in that episode. I knew absolutely everything they said already. It was quite boring. Episode 6 to me was quite boring. I already know all his texts he sent to her. I know what they all said already. I know the story. But let's get into episode 1. Episode 1 was good. I enjoyed it. Why did I enjoy it? Not because of Vince, but... And I will say to start off, I'm not going to be biased towards Vince, even though I did grow up loving the guy, loving what he created for me as a fan to be a fan of. He created it. He didn't create pro wrestling. Obviously, he did not. Pro wrestling's been around since like 1903 or before that, probably. I don't know if they had rings in 1903. I don't think they had rings to wrestle in, but they were probably wrestling on dirt or something, or grass. Anyways, Vince, basically, today what you see WWE as, basically Vince created it. Vince made it global, worldwide, international. That's thanks to Vince McMahon. Now, I grew up in the 80s, late 80s. I became a fan at 3 years old of WWF. WWF is what made me fall in love with pro wrestling. Yeah, it was a lot different than other wrestling like the NWA, Mid-South, World Class, AWA. WWF was a lot different. It was more cartoonish, stuff like that. Larger than life characters that looked like superheroes. Stuff like that. And Vince created sports entertainment, for sure. He explained in episode 1, he wanted to take the product globally. He bought it from his father in 83 or 82. He took over. His dad didn't really want to sell to him. But Vince took over some bookings, I guess, or running some towns without his dad, and he made a profit. So he said to his dad, if I make a profit, can I buy it from you? And his dad agreed. His dad was going to get out of wrestling anyway because he was probably in his 70s, up there in age. He was doing it for a long time. Actually, I didn't know this. Gorilla Monsoon was supposed to take over and buy the company and run it, I guess, by himself. I don't know. But Gorilla Monsoon, but Vince McMahon Jr., Vince got a hold of it. He bought it for, I think, $1 million. And, yeah, Gorilla Monsoon wanted it. He thought he was going to get it, be the next in line to get it from Vince Sr., but Vince McMahon Jr., his son, got it. And I don't know if Gorilla Monsoon had some ownership in WWF when Vince Jr. took over. I think he did have a little bit of ownership, or shared ownership, a little bit at least. I'm not sure, but he did work as a commentator for a long time. From 83 to 93, 94 he worked. So why would he want to do that as commentator all those years? Why would he want to do it if he wasn't part owner and got some extra money as being the owner? But before Vince took over the company, and very lucky how Vince took over. He explained he thought Dusty Rhodes actually could be the guy for him to be his franchise, his guy of his company. He thought Dusty had all the charisma and everything, but Dusty didn't want to do it. And Cody Rhodes even explained Dusty thought it was too big to try to work there, I guess, or be the guy for years and years and years. He would have had to be the guy. He would have had to be on the road like 6 to 7 days a week, probably, and he didn't want to do all that, I bet. Like, if Dusty went there, it would have been seriously full time. He would have had, like, no days off. I'm sure when he was Booker in NWA, I'm sure, I don't think he works 7 days a week. I doubt it. He probably got some time off. But yeah, Vince McMahon Jr. was insane because when he took over, he didn't give the wrestlers, none of the guys, none of the top guys, he didn't give them any time off at all. It was insane looking back on it, watching this, hearing these stories for years about wrestlers like Ricky Steamboat, Roddy Piper, Jake the Snake, Hogan. Even Hogan probably had some time off. I'm not sure if he's working 5 to 7 days a week. I doubt it. You can actually look up Hogan's matches from the 80s. He barely worked any TV tapings. He would appear for interviews, but he didn't wrestle much, maybe in dark matches. But yeah, Hogan sometimes, he only worked like 10 days a month, I think, or less sometimes. So he didn't have a huge, bad schedule. But I'm not sure. Maybe sometimes he was on the road 7 days a week. Once, either Rowdy Piper or Jake the Snake, I heard say this, they were on the road for 91 straight fucking days without a day off, without getting to go home, see their family, or go home and rest. Seriously. No wonder why a whole bunch of wrestlers died young, in their 40s, late 30s. No wonder why. They abused their bodies. A ton of them abused their bodies in the 80s, did too many drugs, uppers, downers, whatever, alcohol with drugs. Some abused steroids for sure, and that probably made your heart weak to die young, seriously. Guys like Rick Rude, Kurt Hennig, like, seriously, those guys, they were on the road a ton. And then they probably partied a lot and stuff like that. So just very sad. A ton of the wrestlers from the 80s that were huge stars are gone because they absolutely just destroyed their bodies with either too many steroids or drugs or alcohol or overdoses or whatever. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but some had accidents, like Adrian Adonis was in a car accident. Dino Bravo actually got mafia style shot up in his home by the mafia in Montreal, I believe. Some wrestlers, a few probably from the 80s, sadly took their own lives also. I can just think of Kerry Von Erich, Chris Adams, but yeah, Chris Adams never worked for WWF. And Kerry Von Erich was going to be in big trouble, probably go to prison, so he couldn't take that. That's probably why he sadly committed suicide. But yeah. So let's get to episode 1. Vince, before he bought it from his dad, he was talking about his dad a lot. This was interesting. Again, I enjoyed episode 1. All the footage and stories about WrestleMania 1. Vince building up the company, stealing a ton of the territories, top talent that got over in the other companies and territories, and Vince was smart. He stole them, he took them, he signed them, offered to pay them more money. That's why they came. But yeah, Vince McMahon Jr. never bought the company from his father. I doubt WWE would have been as big as it is today. I doubt they might not even survived in the territories. Who knows? WCW, Ted Turner might have took them over and bought them. Who knows? The future and what would have happened. Because Ted Turner could have afforded it if WWF or WWF stayed in business as a territory and If into the 90s they weren't doing good financially, Ted Turner could have thought, I'll buy them, I'll take them over, and I'll take all their talent. That could have happened. And Ted Turner was a good guy. He was a good fucking man because he kept WCW going and going when they were losing a ton of money in the early 90s. He didn't pull the plug. I respect him for that. He kept WCW alive because he loved wrestling. And he knew wrestling drew ratings for his networks, TBS, and eventually TNT with Nitro. But yeah, for like 20 years, late 70s to like 73 or 71, I think Ted Turner said wrestling started on TBS and his channels. In 93, they were celebrating 20 years of wrestling on TBS. So, yeah, Ted Turner had wrestling on TBS for 20 years, way before Vince got on USA Network. Again, I will say I respect the hell out of Ted Turner, and I love it, and love him for keeping WCW alive as long as he could, before sadly lost power in Turner and AOL. So, what was I about to say? Yeah, so Vince starts talking about his dad, how he grew up. He was really dirt poor. He grew up in a trailer, I believe, a tiny little trailer, probably smaller than this room. I'm just kidding. There's no way it's smaller than this room. But that'd be something else. If you had to sleep in this room and live in it with like 2 or 3 other people, you would have to sleep on top of each other just about. And Vince explains he was abused, sadly, by his stepfather. That made me feel bad, actually. No kid should have to deal with that shit at all without being able to get out or tell somebody outside of your home, try to get help, and tell somebody so you can get the fuck out of that nightmare of abuse and child abuse. That's a nightmare. I barely ever share this, but as a young kid, I was actually molested and sexually abused by another older boy when I was growing up. And it's horrible. It's fucking horrible to get abused or be beaten. I wasn't beaten, but again, sadly, I was sexually abused. And Vince explains he's beaten every day, he claimed that he got beat. I don't know what the fuck was wrong with his stepfather. Why didn't his mother try to help? I don't know. His mother seemed really out of it too, I think. Because according to Vince, Playboy interview he said his mother basically molested him and did incest to Vince. Again, that's really tragic and sad. He was beaten, abused, and sexually abused. So that did make me feel bad for Vince. I thought, that sucks, because I know what that's like to go through. Again, I'm okay. No need to leave sympathy comments about my sexual abuse as a kid. No need to reach out to me. I'm fine. I'm okay. It was decades ago, and I've dealt with it. But it did happen, and I will admit it. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Happens to a lot of goddamn kids, sadly. Thankfully, it was horrible what happened to me. That I was sexually abused, but thankfully it wasn't a fucking relative that did it. Like, so many kids are abused by their fucking relatives or fathers. That is just absolutely horrendous and should never happen. And if a relative ever did that to you, or if you heard no stories, I hope they're locked up. And I hope they suffered the consequences of doing that to a child. So yeah. it's 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 a nightmare. It's not fun being sexually abused. I didn't really understand at the time what the fuck was happening. I didn't know it was wrong and stuff like that. Again, an older fucking kid I thought was my friend. The guy took advantage of me, and I didn't know because I was very young. I didn't know any better that it was wrong. But eventually, my mom did find out, and the scumbag that did it ran away, and they moved away from us. Probably because they're afraid of getting charged or something. Yeah, I don't like to go into this, but I will because I'm honest on my channel. I will uh, speak the truth and stuff like that. It's so long ago, as I said, decades ago. I block it out. The pain of what happened, I kind of block it out, and I have had some therapy about it. But yeah, my mom even confronted the fucker's mom that did it to me. My mom confronted her and his parents, and they would just run away. They were in denial that their son could do something like that. They were absolutely in denial. So just want to say my mom did absolutely try to uh, help and stick up for me after she found out. But yeah. Again, no need to reach out to me. It's something that happened decades ago, but I just wanted to share it. So Vince again claims he's beaten every day by his stepdad, and his mother, I guess, molested him, which is just sickening, very sad. And Vince just kind of blew it off, like it was nothing, like that didn't affect him as an adult, as an older guy, as an old man. That abuse never affected him. I doubt Vince ever had therapy for it to try to get help and reach out to a therapist about it. I don't think Vince is the type that would go to a therapist and talk about it. But he did talk about it. He did talk about it in the documentary. He didn't hide from it, but he just blew it off, which was weird. Because that shit could stay with you. That could damage your brain when you're older, like it probably did to Vince. That he was abused, and sadly, when he's an old man, or in the 80s and maybe 90s, 2000s, maybe for 3 decades, I don't know. But Vince might have been abusing women for 3 decades or more because of that he was abused. So then, yeah, and Vince, you could tell he got emotional. He almost broke down and cried. You could see his eyes were all watering up. He started talking about his real father. Vince McMahon Sr. showed up, I think after he was 10 or 12. His real dad showed up. He ran up to him, wanted to give him a hug, because he wanted his father's love as a kid. Every kid does. Sadly, my father was not good. He was also abusive to me. Not my stepfather. I didn't have a stepfather. My real father, a few times, was abusive because, sadly, he was an alcoholic. And that's what fucking alcohol does to people. Makes them abusive. And that's why I fucking hate alcohol. And I'm straight edge. But the only thing good my father did, get me into pro wrestling and made me a fan. So I thank him for that, but other than getting me into wrestling, he was not a good guy. Not a good guy. He stole a lot of people's money, ripped a lot of people off, and he was a major alcoholic. And he was not good to my mom. So, yeah, and I don't want to share this, but when my dad was 9 years old, him and another kid, the kid had an accident with my dad there with him. And the kid, I'll just say, had a major accident and passed away in front of my dad. That's all I'm going to say about it. But yeah, my dad actually had another kid with some woman, and I don't know where the person is, or a stepbrother or stepsister out there that I have that I don't know their name or anything. Maybe I'll meet them someday. I don't know. But this is not about my trauma and my fucked up childhood. My mom was great. She was great. She did the best she fucking could as a single mom. She protected me, fed me, kept a roof over my head. She did everything. And she gave me a ton of shit. She didn't have much money as a single mom, but I would beg and beg for new wrestling rings, wrestling figures, and she always got me them somehow. She always made my birthdays and Christmases great. When we didn't have much money, we were on welfare. But again, this is not about This is not a documentary on me and my messed up childhood. So yeah, Vince. Again, I enjoyed episode 1. He talked about his abuse and a lot of great memories from the footage that, because I watched as a young kid, I grew up watching. I wasn't watching live when WrestleMania 1 or 2 happened, but I know I've seen all the footage and I've watched the events back. I know my history. So, yeah, I know my history from about since I was born, 83 to now. But Vince, again, he said he bet everything on WrestleMania 1 that it would be a success, or else they could have went broke and the business could have went down. And they also explain how Vince couldn't get Dusty, but he got Hulk Hogan as his top guy, and Hogan was a perfect guy, absolutely perfect babyface hero for the time. Iron Sheik took the title off Bob Backlund, we all know. Hogan took it off Iron Sheik, and Hulkamania was born. And the company after WrestleMania 1 was on fire, like selling out everywhere, just about. Then WrestleMania 2 happened. It was a pretty big mess because it's from 3 fucking locations. And it had probably had a ton of technical issues if you watched it live. So Vince said in episode, let's go to episode, again I liked episode 1 because the footage and the build up to WrestleMania 1, it was all fun to watch and it brought back great childhood memories for me. The abuse talk that Vince said, his abuse, that was sad. That was sad to hear. So episode 2 here. I'm not gonna go through like detailed. I'm not gonna go through the whole episodes, 2 and 3 and 4. And 5 and 6. I'm going to just talk about a few of them. But I enjoyed episode 1. Episode 2 got dark. I think towards the middle or end when they talked about the Ring Boy scandal. Yeah, I've heard of it before. I knew what happened. But I didn't know really the ring announcer was a fucking creep and basically a predator and pedophile. He was a fucking creep. He should never work there. Pat Patterson, I guess, was also involved, but I don't think Pat Patterson ever got charged or served any time. The wrestlers and teenagers that accused Pat Patterson, why didn't they go to the police? I'm not saying Pat Patterson's innocent. I don't know if he did any of that. But why didn't the wrestlers try to get him charged that he was touching them inappropriately? Why didn't they go to the authorities? I don't get that. I guess because they didn't want to lose their job. I don't know. But seriously, if I would have gotten into wrestling and someone was touching me inappropriately, trying to get me to sleep with them, to stay in the company, I wouldn't do it. I would leave. I'd quit. Or I'd tell the authorities. Like, seriously, I get WWF was looked at as the biggest company in the 80s, but or early 90s, but still you could have worked other damn places. There were other companies. So in episode 2, Vince starts talking about the female referee, Rita Chatterton. And Vince, this was really nuts. I don't know why he said this. This is insane. Why did he say this? Why did he keep speaking about it? It was nuts. Vince said about Rita Chatterton, the female ref. And there were a lot of scandals in the 80s. Jimmy Snuka, the Ring Boy scandal. And Vince in the 90s, I think 92 or something, appeared on Phil Donahue's show to defend himself. But Vince said about the female referee that wasn't around long. Maybe a year she was around. I'm not sure. I don't remember ever seeing her. When I started watching in 87, I think she was gone already. You know, she said she was let go, fired because she wouldn't sleep with Vince, basically. And didn't want to keep sleeping with him. And that Vince raped her. But Vince is so insane. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with his brain. He just blurts this out, and it's recorded on video. He says about the female ref, it was not rape. And then he goes, but if it was, the statute of limitations ran out anyways. That was insane. Why the fuck would you say that? That's mental. Mental. I don't know why he said that. That was horrible. When I heard him say that, my mouth opened and my jaw dropped to the floor. I was like, what the fuck's wrong with you? So basically, Vince is saying like, I didn't do it, and if I did, too bad. You can't catch me. Can't do anything about it because the statute of limitations ran out. Horrible statement. Why the fuck did you say that? So episode 3, they talk about WCW a lot. You know, Vince did steal, as I said, he stole a ton of talent from all the territories that were all the top guys, basically. Took them all. And Vince said in episode 1, what's wrong with that? I was competing. This is America. And he's right. I agree with him there. Vince, I didn't see anything wrong with it. Him stealing the talent, signing them to bigger amounts of money to come work for him. And they left. They decided to leave. They weren't loyal to the territories. They left to go to Vince. Vern Gagne, Bischoff said Vern Gagne absolutely hated Vince. Thought he was a devil or stuff like that. Other promoters, I'm sure, wanted Vince dead. Probably might have put out hits on him. Who knows? I don't know. But episode 3, they talk about WCW a little bit. And then Vince claims, when they say to Vince, the guy, I guess, that made the documentary interviewing him, says to Vince, well, Vince was complaining, bitching, crying about, and Bischoff was pretty funny here, making fun of Vince, that he was whining that Ted Turner took all his talent and signed it away. Well, Vince, you did the same damn thing in the 80s. 84, 85, you did the same fucking thing. 83, you did the same thing. You stole a ton of talent. And you thought nothing was wrong with it. And then in 94, when Hogan went to WCW, you were pissed. You couldn't stand it. You felt heartbroken. You felt stabbed in the back. Because according to Vince, Hogan told him, I will never compete against you. I just want out of my contract. Hogan was probably burned the fuck out anyways. That's why he wanted to leave. Also, you could probably see the writing on the wall. The fans were booing him a lot in 93. Hulkamania was not running wild anymore in 93. It was not. He got some cheers, a lot of cheers, WrestleMania 9, but yeah, Hogan could not stay there after King of the Ring 93. It would have been ridiculous if he would have stayed. And I actually did a show, What If? I believe it's called What If? Hulk Hogan would have stayed in 94. Or in the 95. And I fantasy booked that. Check that show out. So then, I don't know if this was episode, I'll get to this in a minute. On my phone, I took a picture of what Vince said in one of the episodes. But still on episode 3, the guy asked Vince, don't you, or Vince said, maybe I should feel like a hypocrite because I took talent also, and Ted Turner did the same thing because he had a big checkbook. He could sign anybody. He had a ton of money. He owned CNN, TBS, TNT. He at one point owned the Atlanta Braves also and the Atlanta Hawks. So Ted Turner definitely was a billionaire. And Ted Turner, out of the 2 billionaires that are well known, compared to Vince McMahon, and stupid piece of shit, scumbag, traitor, Donald Trump. Those 2 billionaires, but we all know Trump is a many times bankrupted billionaire. Probably not even a billionaire anymore because the fucker is selling little trading cards of himself, which is AI trading cards, which is pathetic. If you ever buy his fucking trading cards, you're a loser. But, yeah. Basically, growing up, the 2 billionaires in wrestling that I could think of, there's other billionaires, but they weren't involved in wrestling, really, except for Vince, Donald Trump, Ted Turner. And, of course, there's Bill Gates and Mark Cuban, other billionaires, but those 3 billionaires out of Vince, Donald Trump, Ted Turner, guess who's the best one that I respect the most and was a good fucking guy? Ted Turner was a good guy out of those 3. He was a good guy, respectable man, never abused anybody, never has been sued for abuse, anything like that. So out of those 3 billionaires, Ted Turner I respect the most. In episode 1, I will say, I love Vince for creating WWF and making it global and what he did for wrestling. I love him for that. And you can like him still. I don't know about love, but you can still like him for what he did for pro wrestling and his company. Not the scandal parts. Not hiding scandals, trying to bury them. But for what he did for pro wrestling. You can like Vince still for what he did for wrestling. I will always be grateful for what Vince did for pro wrestling. But him personally, his scandals, the accusations, I hate. I hate that part of pro wrestling. I don't even want to think of it. I don't even want to talk about it. But yeah, you can like Vince for what he did for wrestling, but hate him for what he did that was bad. The assaults and the cover-ups. So Vince said to the guy, asking him, don't you think you did the same thing in the 80s that Ted Turner did to you in the 90s? He goes, no. He goes, no, I don't think it's the same at all. Come on, Vince. It was the exact same fucking thing. Ted Turner was signing these legends, older wrestlers, for the good of his company. You did the same damn thing in the 80s for WWF. I guess Vince he couldn't admit it. In this documentary, many times, he couldn't admit it. He could not admit when he was wrong about the Owen Hart show. Continuing, it should have never continued. Over the Edge 99 should have stopped. But Vince couldn't even admit it. I was wrong. It shouldn't have continued. We should have stopped the pay-per-view out of respect for Owen. That was horrible, watching that episode part about when Owen passed away. And Vince actually being questioned for like maybe the first time a lot about Owen's death and what he was thinking. He just blamed the makers of the harness that failed on Owen Hart. And Brett was super upset, hated Vince, but he said a Kansas City police officer told Brett and called him and said, Brett, we investigated, it was an accident. And Brett accepted that, he said, and I guess he kind of said he forgave Vince and didn't blame Vince for that, for the death of his brother. So then, more episode 3, Vince said also he lied again and wouldn't admit he took ideas from Eric Bischoff in the NWO because they were kicking your fucking ass. You took a lot of ideas from that to try to make your product edgier and better. You seriously did. The NWO storyline, in my opinion, the NWO, without NWO, there would have been no DX at all. And you went to got edgier and tried to do the Attitude Era without the NWO. You probably would have stuck to your Doink the Clowns and goofy ass gimmicks like that, and horrible gimmicks that were cartoon, childish bullshit like that. I hated those gimmicks. Gimmicks like the Goon was shit. Other horrible gimmicks, a plumber. What was his name? TJ Hopper, the plumber gimmick, horrible. Duke the Dumpster, horrible gimmick. Just goofy cartoon shit. So you saw how cool the NWO was and what Bischoff did, and you stole a lot of that and made it in your company. Or basically put more realistic wrestlers and storylines in your company after the NWO started. And one guy, the bald guy that's a wrestling expert, David Schumacher, whatever his name is, I think he said about Vince could have turned Hogan heel. He could have had Hollywood Hogan. He actually could have. If he would have turned Hogan heel in 93, but he didn't have the balls to. He thought, no, Hogan should never be a heel. And then Vince admitted, in the documentary, Vince claims, oh yeah, did I ever think about to turn Hogan heel? No. No, I thought he shouldn't be heel. That's stupid. Like, get your head out of your ass. He could have been a heel for you and made you a ton of money. Because the minute Hogan turned heel, it changed wrestling. It changed WCW to become #1 and made WCW a ton of money just from Hogan turning heel. Also, Hall and Nash helped also turn around WCW. Also, Vince, you did steal from WCW in the NWO, but you wouldn't admit it. You were lying about it, claiming you always created your own stars and stuff like that. Well, you stole stars in the 80s from territories when they were already over in stars. You did the same thing as WCW. Also, Vince, you said ECW was a wild ass product. Well, you stole a lot from ECW also. You really did. The Attitude Era, a lot of stuff that WWF did in the Attitude Era was stolen, taken from ECW. Absolutely ripped off and taken and copied. Now, look, every company can copy each other. But the Attitude Era was a blatant ripoff of ECW and what they did before. WWF did it. NWO kicked your ass by Bischoff creating the Outsiders and the NWO. That kicked your ass, and you couldn't take it. You couldn't admit it that they kicked your ass. Or maybe did admit it. I don't remember, but yeah. And you didn't bring up how you took some stuff from ECW either, because you did. Bam Bam Bigelow Taz broke through the ring. First time that I've ever seen that done in wrestling. And you did it in 99. A year later, you did it with the Big Show and Undertaker on Raw. Big Show chokeslam, Taker through the ring. ECW did it first. You also took Jenna Jameson, actually. ECW hired her first. She appeared twice. At Hardcore Heaven 97 and Living Dangerously 98. And you decided to bring her in. Maybe Vince Russo wanted to bring her in. I don't know, or Bruce Pritchard. But you still brought her in, Vince, to work with Val Venus once and appear in a vignette. And you also put Stone Cold on the Undertaker's symbol, which ECW did that already in 96, but they did it on a cross that the Sandman built. And you probably ripped off ECW a lot more than just those ideas. Stone Cold Steve Austin. In ECW, Steve Austin had an edge about him in his promos. It was early days of Stone Cold, and you didn't see that. You didn't see anything in Stone Cold Steve Austin, Vince. You didn't even want him to talk. And then you got pissed off when he cut the Austin 316 promo. I was there live, King of the Ring 96. You got pissed at him because he said Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. And Austin 316 or Bible verse, whatever, John 316. I don't know about that Bible verse. I don't care about the Bible. I don't read it, and I'm not religious. But Vince was upset Stone Cold cut that all-time great promo. But Vince did put it over and said it was brilliant. It was. It really was brilliant. And we all know Stone Cold Steve Austin, by the way, Vince's greatest rival. Vince was a great heel. All-time great heel in wrestling in WWF. Maybe the greatest heel of all time in WWF history. Seriously, he probably was the most hated heel of all time. But, yeah. Stone Cold prospered feuding with Vince. They helped each other, and the company absolutely thrived and was on fire, selling out everywhere during the Attitude Era. So more. Again, Vince, you stole from WCW and the NWO stuff, and you stole from ECW. And there would be no DX without the NWO, as I said, in my opinion. Ted, you said stole your talent. Well, Vince, you did the same thing as I said in 83, 84, 85, 86, 87. You took a ton of talents from all over different territories. You took Roddy Piper, Greg Valentine, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Junkyard Dog, Jimmy Hart, King Kong Bundy, everybody that was a part of your roster before WrestleMania 1, you took and signed them. Ricky Steamboat. God, everybody you took. Just about. You took Hogan from the AWA. And you did not create Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania. AWA and Vern did. And Hogan himself created Hulkamanias in the gimmick. But according to Vince, he thinks he did. Probably. So episode 4 is about the Attitude Era. Why couldn't you admit it, Vince? You should have stopped the fucking show. Over the Edge 99. Tragic. One of the saddest, most tragic days in wrestling history. And this, I never thought of this before when Owen Hart passed. I never even really heard this. I forgot, or I didn't know this. Owen Hart's blood after he fell was still on the fucking mat. They have footage of it. They show it. Netflix documentary, they show it, episode 4, about the Attitude Era. Owen's blood was still fucking there when Jarrett, his good friend, had to wrestle. I can't imagine what he was going through. And Deborah was broken up, crying also. Jeff was crying in his promo. Deborah was crying. It was sad. Sad to watch. Horrible to watch. Just that horrible memories seeing that stuff. Just tragic and sad. The show should have never went on. Fucking embarrassment, Vince, that you let the show continue. And then you were trying to defend it, claiming the lights were out, the fans didn't know he died. They knew he fell. I don't know if they knew he was gone, but they saw him laying in the ring. Paramedics were working on him, took him out on a stretcher. The crowd probably stood up clapping because they thought Owen was okay, going to the hospital. I bet if the fans knew he passed away, they would have been furious and walked out. But according to Vince, they didn't see it. They didn't know. And they didn't want to tell the fans in the live arena. Tragic, sad, pathetic. Should have stopped the fucking show. I would have stopped it if I was the boss. But according to Vince, if he died, if it was him that fell, he would have wanted the show to go on. Well, you're not Owen. You're nuts, Vince. You're insane in the fucking head. That's obvious. That you're nuts. You got mental issues. You need therapy. Probably for decades. And you need to go to therapy 7 days a fucking week. For like 8 hours a day, I think. To fix you. And how you think. If you died, you would have wanted the show to go on. You're not dead. So that's pointless to say that shit. You're alive, Vince. Sadly, Owen is not. Owen Hart is a great man. Loved by everybody he worked with. So then Vince, I don't know what episode this was. Maybe 3 or 4. Maybe 5. I don't know. Maybe 6. This was just insane. Another insane fucking thing he said. He just blurts out to the camera and starts talking about, I have like 3 brains, how I think. To me, I think you got about 20 different personalities, probably. And you're probably ADHD with 20 different personality disorders. Where did I write that down? Yeah, you probably got 20 different personalities. God. You got mental issues. You lost it in 2024. You weren't a creative genius. You were not a good booker. You lost it in 2024. You should have stepped down 10 years ago. Because you're about 68 years old, I think, in 2024. You should have been out of power in 2024. But somehow you stayed the fuck in. And everybody thought Vince would die and still be head of WWE. Thank fucking God he's not. The company's way better off. And the product is better than ever. And they're making more money than ever. And Triple H is way better at booking the shows and treating pro wrestling seriously like a sport, not sports entertainment. Not like how you booked. You wouldn't even fucking let your employees say pro wrestling, which is ridiculous. Dumb fuck. So Vince, in my opinion, you should have been out of power in 2014. But you stayed in. You had power. You had a 40-year run, basically, in power. You're out. Thank God it's best for business. You're gone. So here Vince just blurts out, before I went off on that rant, I believe, seriously, he has different personality disorders. Because why is he so abusive? Verbally abusive to his co-workers. Not his co-workers, his employees. He was fucking abusive to them. Screaming at them on commentary, screaming at them, telling them what to say, screaming, cursing at them. They fucked up. That's horrible, boss, to act like that. Bill Watts was another fucking abusive boss, but I think Vince was worse than him. Vince McMahon just blurts out, this was weird as shit. Just like the weird shit he said about the statute of limitations was up, so who cares if she said that about me. Vince just blurts out for some fucking reason, again, he's mentally disabled, or mentally ill. Not disabled, mentally fucking ill. He blurts out, says he has a third brain that is thinking of sex. That was disturbing. That was fucking nuts. When I heard that, I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the fuck, Vince? Why would you say that? When you're looked at as a predator that has been accused of stuff. And then you blurt that out. That makes you look like a real fucking guilty creep, in my opinion. Just blurt out in the Netflix final, I think it's episode 6, I don't know, but according to this article, is in the Netflix final episode. It says his third brain is thinking about sex right now. That was disturbing as hell. Yeah, probably if you're Vince in 2021 when he's interviewed, 77 years old, I think, or 76. You probably shouldn't fucking be interviewed about your life, because you were speaking insane. A lot of shit you said was insane. And you were interviewed. It's recorded of you talking nuts. Oh boy, that was insane. So episode 5. Where am I here? These notes. So yeah, this is episode 6. Or episode 5, when the interviewer that I guess made the documentary, or director of it, said, what is Vince's legacy to John Cena, Undertaker, Booker T? Nobody could answer. That was weird. They didn't want to answer. They probably knew something about Vince. They had no answer. The only guy that answered was Tony Atlas. And Tony Atlas was hilarious. He was interviewed a lot. They showed him a lot talking about Vince. He wasn't in the company that much. Yeah, I know. He knows a lot of stories about Vince. He was there, but again, Tony Atlas was interviewed a lot. They probably couldn't get any other wrestlers to want to be interviewed. They couldn't get Kevin Nash or anyone else except the main guys. But Tony Atlas, at one point when Vince said, before Vince Sr. died, Vince said, I got closure from my dad passing. The day before he passed, he told me, I love you, son. I'm proud of you. And Vince was very emotional about that. That's what he wanted. He wanted a hug. He wanted the love of his father. He didn't get it growing up. He didn't get it, and he didn't get his father to say anything nice to him, I guess, until before he passed. That's pathetic and sad. So, yeah, I think Vince and his father's relationship, his abuse growing up, really affected him to just act nuts when he was the boss. So Vince acts like he's emotional, sad about his father going, and he seemed happy. His dad said, "I love you," finally. And Vince said he never got that approval before, like he didn't feel like his father loved him. Again, Vince had big time daddy issues. That's why he needs therapy. But then Tony Atlas is interviewed and says, "I don't think he liked his dad." That was funny. I thought that was funny. I was like, what? Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But according to Tony Atlas, Vince, he said, didn't even like his dad. Because his dad did not agree with what he was doing with the business. But that is hilarious. Also, before I talk about episode 6, and some notes I have about it. So, yeah, this was great. I think it's episode 1 or 2. John Stossel, the fucking idiot reporter from 2020, tried to do a hit job piece on pro wrestling. Just wanted to put it down, make fun of pro wrestling, put it down, and say to all the wrestlers, you know what? I think this is fake. That's all he cared about. Exposing wrestling, calling it fake. He thought it was a joke. He wasn't a fan. He was a fucking asshole. Like, seriously, he thought he was killing the business by his 2020 report, trying to expose it, how the wrestlers bladed and bled, and he thought he could get America, I guess, to turn on pro wrestling because it was a work and a story and predetermined. Guess fucking what? So is movies. Movies are also predetermined and a fantasy and a work. And everybody loves movies. Everybody loves TV shows. Why do fucking wrestling fans like me and millions of others, why do we gotta fucking listen to dumbasses call it fake? When their entertainment is also fake. And guess what? Sports is very real. Especially football. The injuries are real. Guess what? Pro wrestling, one of the realest sports of all time. It's still real to me, damn it. I know it's predetermined, but the fucking injuries are real. The bumps are real. The miles on the road are real. The blood, sweat, and tears are real. So fuck John Stossel. Hogan exposed him and said, I never heard this before. Hogan said, John Stossel said to me, so how do you guys bleed? Do you cut yourself? I want to know, tell me. Or is the blood fake? And Hogan said, I knew right away. This guy is trying to expose our business, Vince. Hogan told Vince. He also told Vince about the union Jesse Ventura wanted to start. But that's an old story. Anyways. So Hogan told Vince, this guy's trying to kill our business and expose it in his report on 2020. And if I see that report again, it'll piss me off all over again. Seeing John Stossel pisses me off anytime I see him. Because he was trying to hurt pro wrestling. He was trying to hurt something I love. And he still, I'm sure, disrespects it like a fucking ass. And I guess he cries and complains he went deaf in one ear. Or lost his hearing because the bitch slap he got from Dr. D. David Schultz. Thank you, David Schultz. I will thank you forever. If I meet you, I'll thank you for slapping him, knocking him on his fucking little ass. His little skinny, unathletic ass. You knocked him on his ass. You gave him a You gave him what he deserved. Gave him a taste of his own fucking medicine. You wanted to call it fake? You absolutely showed him. Is that fake? Is that fake? That's the greatest fucking video clip I've ever seen. I love that video clip of him knocking John Stossel on his ass. And he slapped him twice, which is hilarious. And little bitch John Stossel looked shocked. He was on the ground looking up at him like he was scared to death and couldn't believe he got hit. And then John Stossel still tried to act like an ass, saying, I couldn't believe I was hit from this phony wrestling and this phony wrestler. All I did was tell him the truth. But, yeah. After Dr. D did that, Tony Atlas said all the boys were happy, celebrating, congratulating him. And they should. Because John Stossel deserved that for acting like a fucking ass. So also another thing about the Vince documentary, Bret Hart. I think it was in the Screwjob episode or about the Attitude Era. Bret claimed the Clique, he said, killed wrestling with the curtain call. I disagree. They didn't kill it. Come on, Bret. They did not kill it for doing that. The fans already knew the heels and faces, Bret. In 96, I already knew. Heels and faces, I'm sure, got along backstage, and they were friendly. Some of them probably traveled together in the late 90s, and the fans didn't care if they were friendly, if heels and faces were friendly. And according to Bret, or Bret's perspective, he thought they were killing the business, I guess, because they were heels and faces, exposing it that they were friends. So what, Bret? Times are changing. I was not upset about the curtain call at all. I didn't think it killed the business, but according to Bret, it did. And they talked about the screw job a lot against Bret, and Wendy Richter had a screw job also against her. So I'll be back with another episode of Let's Talk About It, the Vince McMahon Netflix documentary.